Kia ora koutou katoa, no mai haere mai, and welcome to another episode of the Political Power Hour with me, your host, Holly Bennett. Today I am joined in the studio by a living, breathing MP, so a Member of Parliament.
Still breathing.
Simeon Brown, welcome.
Thank you very much, Holly. Great to be here with you.
Thank you. It's so good to have you as our very first guest.
Fantastic.
And you're actually a Member of Parliament.
That's right. No, it's great to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome. So what we're going to do today is we are going to follow a similar format as we did last week, which are going to talk about 5 top political issues that happened in New Zealand recently. And then we're going to get into some grunty stuff. So we're going to be talking about your life as an MP and things that you've experienced. So you've been in Parliament since 2017, right?
Yes, I'm in my 3rd year, first term in Parliament.
And
loving it.
Loving it?
Yep.
Really?
Great fun.
So you've had no bad experiences in Parliament?
There's always good days and bad days, but there's more upside than downside. We're just got to win the next election for the National Party. So.
And how many days is it until the election?
233.
230. I knew you'd know. I knew you'd know. So you're ready and rearing to go, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if you guys want to join us in the conversation today, absolutely leave a comment below in the stream if you're watching on Facebook. If you're watching elsewhere, make sure that you follow us on Twitter. It's political_hour. You can tweet Simeon. You can tweet our handle, or you can use the hashtag NZPPH, and we'll make sure that we respond to you. And of course, we have Launchna as the producer in here with us today.
Kia ora everyone. Thanks for having me, Holly.
Thank you for all the feedback everyone gave about him being on the mic with us last week. It was very, very interesting time. And now we've got 3 of us. So let's the bants begin,
That's
right?
Great.
So first, I wanted to just introduce you guys to Simeon because I think it's really important to give some context around what is one of our youngest MPs, is that right?
That's right. Youngest national MP, 2nd youngest MP in Parliament at the moment.
So who's the other one that's younger
So
than
Chloe
you?
Swarbrick's the youngest.
Okay.
She's they call it the baby of the house.
The baby of the
yes,
house?
Yes, that's right. So that title goes to the youngest Member of Parliament, and then you also have the father of the house.
Who's that?
Which is a sexist name, but that is Nick Smith. But I think it's only been men who've ever been the longest served. So that's the longest consecutive serving in the House. So, of course, Winston Peters has been there for the most years, but he's been in and out.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So do you think that you want to end up being father of the house?
Yeah, not too sure. Don't think so, yeah. I'm more than happy being father to my little girl, Anna. And I'm not sure if I really want to be father of the house. That's certainly many, many years in Parliament. That'd be a long time.
That's what we could tell Nick Smith, that you're coming for his title.
I don't think he'll worry too much about that.
All right, so Simeon is the local representative for Pakuranga, and he is... So you live there with your wife, Rebecca?
That's right, yep. Great part of Auckland,
yeah.
I think.
I just want to say that's my hood.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
oh,
I didn't
awesome.
even know that, man. That's awesome.
So I'm your local MP.
You're my local MP. Wow,
that's awesome.
That's
great. Yeah. So I live in Half.
Well, I'll just leave. I'll leave. I'm going now.
I live in Half Moon Bay.
Oh wow.
So it's a lovely part of Auckland. So if you're ever thinking of a weekend, something to do, there's some great cafes down there up in Howick Markets on a Saturday morning.
Yep.
Beautiful part of Auckland. Some beautiful beaches as well. Great places for swimming in a hot summer days like today.
What is his local Member of Parliament like, though? Is he there advocating on the issues that matter?
Well, I am.
Well, that's you. That's what I mean. So prior to becoming a member of parliament, so you've been doing that, and you're in your third year now, what were you doing before then?
So I've done a few bits and pieces.
Yeah.
So I went to law school.
Yeah.
The law and commerce degree.
Do you want to tell everyone?
Yes, I went to law school with you.
Yeah.
Which was great.
Was it great though? Was it great?
Well, I didn't go and practice law afterwards.
I sort of more meant the law school part because.
Yes, I loved law school. It was
So, fun fact for everyone out there: I never went to class.
Oh.
So, Simeon and I did.
We went to law school together. We
Yeah.
just might not have gone to law school class together.
Or just at all, because I spent most of my time at university gym. And Simeon was a studious student, and I wasn't.
Some of the time.
So, right, yes, so you did a law and commerce.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so graduated, and then I went into commercial banking. So I worked for the Bank of New Zealand,
Okay.
based in Highbrook.
Yeah.
And so worked with commercial clients sort of in the medium-sized businesses. So
Yeah.
between turning over sort of $2 to $50 million annual turnover per year. So that was the type of business we worked with.
Yeah.
And really exciting to sort of work alongside a lot of companies at the cutting edge of new products or employing people and making a real difference. So that was really enjoyable, and also had some experience in local government along the way.
Well, that's the thing I was going to say. So your political career didn't start in 2017.
No, so I probably didn't see much of you at law school as well, because I actually was doing local government stuff at the same time as being at law school.
Because what were you doing? So you started, was your first role that you got when you were 17, 18? Manuriwa, your local youth council?
That was when I was in the youth council. It was probably about 20 at the time.
Yeah.
I think that was 2011.
Yeah.
So that was when I was 20.
Yeah.
And then I stood for the Manuriwa local board in 2013.
Okay, yeah.
And so
And was successful?
And I was successful. And so I spent about 4.5 years on the Manuriwa local board.
Yeah.
And I was the deputy chair for 3 of those years. And that was a really great experience in terms of really understanding in politics at the most local level.
Yeah.
And you can't get more local than local government.
No, definitely
And so we got involved in a lot of issues, but also ran some great campaigns on some big issues.
Yeah.
And so that was the experience I really enjoyed.
So a lot of people, I don't think, will know this about you and your, in essence, what is, from my perspective, some great political lobbying in essence, which is the work that you did on the psychoactive substance.
That's right, yeah.
Right? So do you want to take us quickly through that?
Yeah, sure.
Because I think that's super, super interesting, because it does sort of go back to the heart, I think, in my view, to what democracy can actually do.
Yeah.
Democracy in action.
So back in around 2013, there was the rise of synthetic drugs.
Yeah.
And so people remember the synthetic stores on the corners, by the corner dairy, kids being zombied out.
Yeah.
And it was causing a huge amount of harm. And so the government was responding, and they were trying to regulate. And so I basically pulled together local boards from around Auckland to really bring that advocacy really strongly, say Auckland wants to basically get rid of these things. And so I went around all the local boards in Auckland, turned up to the governing body and advocated to say, look, we don't want these things. So we put in place a local approved products policy. That's the technical name. To basically
That's a great name.
We don't want these things in Auckland.
Yeah.
So I was just a first-term local body politician, but able to get on a campaign to really say no to these things. The government then actually responded as the problem was getting worse and essentially banned them. And so that was needed because the harms just continued to come.
Yeah.
And actually I continued that work once I came to Parliament because whilst they were banned, the drug lords out there were still very keen to try and make a dollar, and we ended up with some very dangerous drugs being peddled under the banner of synthetic drugs. They were nothing like what was being sold earlier. They were incredibly different, and essentially they were killing dozens of people. And so I actually put a bill to Parliament to essentially make them increase the penalty for prison sentences for those who actually continue to supply them, the suppliers of these drugs, which the government actually ended up picking up. They're now Class A drugs. Good. So that's one of the things where it's an interesting story because it started in local government and I continued once I got into Parliament. But an issue that I'm very passionate around, how we should be ensuring that those people who are supplying drugs and selling them to the most vulnerable people really should face the full force of the law.
Yeah,
and I have no sympathy for them.
Yeah. Do you feel like that's an extremely proud moment?
Well, I think so. I think it's something which I've been able to achieve from whether that's early in local body political role or in a first term of being Parliament.
Yeah.
But I think it just shows the power that you can achieve stuff even while you're new, while you're young.
Yeah.
And but also it shows how the system does work and does get things done. And look, end of the day, the government was the one who actually passed the final legislation.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at the end of the day, the right thing was done, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I love it.
And that's what I'm proud about.
I love it. So I was having a look at your bio, and it said, outside of politics, your interests include, obviously, your whānau, so family, gardening, but also playing the clarinet.
Yeah, I don't play it as often as I would like, but interesting fun fact. I
always love a good fun fact.
I used to play the good old clarinet on a Saturday morning busking in Botany at the Botany Town Centre.
Really?
Yeah. So my parents were very keen on us all learning an instrument.
Yep.
And so it was sort of the traditional recorder.
Okay.
And everyone learns how to play the recorder, at school. And but I was sort of sick and tired of the recorder. And so I said to my parents, I want to play the clarinet. And they're like, oh, that's cool. So I learnt the clarinet. And so I'd have my music lessons on a Friday afternoon.
Friday afternoon?
Yeah, on a Friday.
That's rough.
I know. And then on a Saturday morning, I'd go up to the...
I now understand why you got into politics.
I then went up to the Botany Town Centre.
Yeah.
And I'd get up to $80-90 an hour.
Yeah.
Busking.
Now tell me,
that was good money.
Declare those earnings?
Well, not really. I think I was.
You heard it here first.
I think
folks.
I was earning under $1,000 a year.
Well, I think I might have to raise that with Simon the next time I talk
you
to
do.
him. No. All right, so we're gonna switch gears now. I'm going to talk about some poignant political issues that have been in the media this week. So 5 issues. I'm going to rattle them off.
Great.
And then we're going to have a conversation about all of them.
Fantastic.
All right. So obviously, the first issue is the election date, September 19, which we already know. You know how many days it is, 233. Number 2 is the government's recent infrastructure announcement. I'm sure that you'll have lots of views on that. 3 is the coronavirus, which is becoming more and more problematic day by day. 4, ihmatau. So I touched on this last week. Now, since I brought it up last week, there's been allegations of a payout. So I just want to know, is it coming? It's an interesting story to keep following. Me too. And then the final story we're going to talk about is lobbying in New Zealand. There was a really great opinion piece put out by a journalist, and it sort of talked about the work that I did as a lobbyist on my day-to-day. And I thought, what better way than talk to an MP about that? So, election date, September 19. Seems like a long time away. How are you feeling?
Well, it is 233 days.
Yeah.
A week can be like a year in politics, or it can go by really quickly.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen. But I'm really excited. I think the National Party's looking forward to a strong campaign on the issues which matter, the economy, law and order, and making sure that people are better off.
Yeah.
We don't think this government's been delivering for New Zealanders. They certainly haven't been delivering on their promises.
Right.
And so we'll be challenging their record, but also putting out a positive plan for the future around where we want to take New Zealand. So we've put out, I think, 10 discussion documents so far. They've got a whole lot of commitments and ideas that we're seeking feedback on.
Yeah.
And then over the next 233 days, we'll be announcing policies, specific policies, how we're going to make a difference in all of those areas.
So are you guys seeking feedback on it right now?
That's right. So if you go to our website, the National Party website, you'll see the links there to all our discussion documents. Yeah. So I'm in the education team, so I helped with the education discussion document with Nikki Kay and Dr. Shane Reddy, who are our education, tertiary education spokespeople. Yeah. A whole range of ideas. If you think about fees free, we're putting forward some new ideas with what you could do with that money. We think it's been badly spent. Yeah. $2.8 billion, which has not increased the number of students going to university when it said the whole idea was to increase participation. We're saying we think that money could potentially be spent better. Right. And one of the ideas we're talking about is what's called EduSaver. So it's a Singaporean, the idea is sort of in place in Singapore, like a KiwiSaver. Yeah. But you start it younger and you invest in the future for your education. The government, business, your family can all participate in that. So that's the conversation that we're trying to get going at the moment.
EduSaver, this is really interesting. So what is it designed to do though? So is it like a Kiwi saver, but then it accumulates obviously some resource which then you can put forward to your own education?
Yeah, so essentially a personal investment fund
Okay.
for you, for your education, for your future. And it could be going to university.
Okay.
It could be an apprenticeship.
Okay.
The money you can spend on what you want.
Yeah.
What that looks like and how it's funded. Those
Right.
are questions we're asking at the moment.
Okay.
But that's something which we think would potentially be a more effective model at helping people than simply just giving people a free year at university, and which doesn't actually increase participation other than reducing cost.
Tell me, do you have a student loan still?
Not anymore.
When did you finish paying yours
I
off?
think it was last year.
Oh, good. Okay, I'm not too far behind. I've got $2,000 left to go.
Oh, good job. Good job.
It's taken a while, but I'm getting there. But that
Well
makes
done.
me feel a little bit better. September 19th. So you've got your consultation documents and you're seeking ideas and feedback. Is there any announcements that we can expect to happen in the next couple of days, weeks, that we should keep our eyes and ears to the ground?
Well, look, I think we've got our 2-day, the National Party's got a 2-day caucus over this coming weekend.
Right.
Then we've got Waitangi next week as well.
Yeah.
So both of those will lead to different things being released and announced by political parties. Then we've got Parliament coming back the week after.
Yeah.
And that starts with a speech from the Prime Minister, which the opposition will respond to.
Right.
So we'll certainly be having things to say.
Right.
Don't have any details,
Might
unfortunately.
that be that National Party will run people in the Māori seats?
Well, look, I'm not privy to anything on that. But look, those are all questions which we'll have answers to over coming weeks.
Sure. Good. Okay. Good. That's what I like to hear. All right. So issue number 2, my computers. Government's infrastructure announcement. This has taken up a lot of space in the media, obviously, this week. Massive investments. I don't know what the numbers were, but significantly more for the North Island than for the South Island. I saw that. That interests me because there are people that live in the South Island, despite the fact that we all above, like Hamilton and above, seem to think that we're the only ones that live in this country. What are your views on the infrastructure announcement?
Well, look, essentially what it has in it, and it's a significant amount of money, billions of dollars, is being announced on a whole lot of projects which were delayed when Labor came into power in 2017. So we had plans to build a whole range of roads and infrastructure investment, and rail, which they put the basically pulled the pin on.
Right.
Whether that's the 4-laning from Whangarei to Port Marsden, whether that's the road Northern Link out of Tauranga, whether that's the electrification from Papakura to Pukekohe of the rail. All of these were projects which we said we're going to get on and do. This is the next phase. Basically, the government said, look, we're pulling the pin on that. We've overinvested in roads for decades, is what what Minister Phil Twyford said at the time.
Right.
But at the end of the day, New Zealand is a growing population. We have a growing population. We need to get around. And also the lack of investment is flowing through to our economy, slowing. And so the government has been embarrassed into having to announce investment in roads. Right. These guys don't want to be investing in roads. They think everyone's going to magically get on a bus or cycle to work tomorrow. But the reality is, and if you go back to my electorate, over 90% of people get to work in a car. That's just the reality of life for people. And yes, we need to get the balance right. Yeah. But this government said, actually, we're going to put all this money into a light rail up Dominion Road and cancelled everything else. They then realised it actually takes a bit more work than just saying you're going to build something to actually deliver that. Right. And in the meantime, there's nothing happening in terms of infrastructure. So this is the government's been embarrassed into doing this, essentially.
What would you say, though? I was reading an article, a newsroom, about it being systemic lack of investment in infrastructure, like almost 3 decades, 30 years. Would you agree with that statement?
Well, I think there needs to be more investment in infrastructure across New Zealand, and I think there has been there has been underinvestment, and I think it's something which National was trying to address when we were in government, and we were doing an enormous amount to build new infrastructure across New Zealand. You think about the 4-laning through to Cambridge from Auckland. We would, the Golden Triangle of Auckland, Hamilton, and Tauranga. Significant investment in the road and rail infrastructure in that area. So there's a lot to do. It takes time though, and this is the planning processes take time. Investing, the consultation with the community, and so we had a range of roads. We called them roads of national significance, ready to go, and we had some which were in the planning process, and we were funding these, and essentially when you pull a pin on it, it delays the whole process. So you've got to go back to the drawing board. You have to go back to the consultation process, back through the Resource Management Act process, particularly if you make changes, and that takes even more time. So the worst thing they could do was actually delay these projects. Right. They should have carried on with them, as well as thinking about their future. And our plan had light rail in Auckland, but we weren't thinking about it in the next 5-10 years. We were thinking in the longer term. And because we know it takes a long time to actually think through these things, get the planning processes, get the capability, and actually build up to do stuff.
Okay.
You can't drive in an announcement.
Sounds reasonable. I guess the other thing, and we might see this come out in the campaign, is that Simon, who, the leader of the National Party, so essentially Simeon's boss, was the Minister of Transport, right, at one point. I guess, everything that you're saying sounds fair, and then the thing that you did say, which I noted, was that yes, there has been elements of underinvestment. It's a novel idea for a politician to sometimes accept that. Do you think that we might sort of see some, rather than avoiding issues, just saying, yep, sure, maybe there was a little bit of underinvestment?
Well, we supported the legislation this year which sets up the Infrastructure Commission, which is basically setting up the government and opposition both signed up to it. It's setting up the Infrastructure Commission, which basically says, look, we need to take a long-term view of infrastructure in New Zealand. And so, look, you can go back and you can criticise governments in the past. As I said, National was investing. You think about the Waterview Tunnel in Auckland. That was something that we championed and something we built. That's delivery of infrastructure. But it took a long time. It was opened in 2017. The planning processes started when we came to government in 2008.
Did it though, or did it start prior to, under?
Well, there was talk about it, the
Helen?
actual process of actually getting it started and actually making sure that it was going to be fit for the future, not a 2-lane road, a 3-lane road, to make sure that it was actually going to deliver for growth in Auckland. Happened and delivered. But that just shows how long it takes. If you think about that, it's a massive project, over $2 billion, but you think about that and what it does to Auckland and the potential it unlocks is enormous. It is. But it also shows how long it takes to build infrastructure. We need to get better at building infrastructure in New Zealand. So anyway, the Infrastructure Commission is about saying, look, we need to have a long-term view about what we need. The roads, the rail, you think about all the infrastructure which local government also controls, which is all the pipes under the ground, water, wastewater, stormwater. We need to take a long-term view of this stuff and think about the future and think about what we need and to look at that advice and plan ahead.
That tunnel is a great thing though, isn't it?
Oh, it's beautiful. I love driving that tunnel. Sometimes when I'm driving, even though I don't have to take it, I'll just drive through the tunnel. Because if I'm out in West Auckland, I can travel home either through the city or go through the tunnel and through Onehunga.
I hope that you're buying carbon credits if you don't need to be travelling that direction.
I'm not sure which ones, it's about, 1 or 2 minutes difference.
All right, let's move on.
But it's a beautiful tunnel.
No, it is. It's a stunning, stunning tunnel. I didn't think I'd say that about a tunnel, but there you go. There you go. All right, issue number 3, coronavirus. I'm nervous.
Yeah, it is a very serious issue, and I feel nervous about this too. It's very concerning, and I've had a huge number of people in my electorate contact me about it. I've got a very large proportion of Chinese residents in my community, so I think we've got the fourth or fifth highest number of Asian communities out of all of New Zealand. So a lot of concern about obviously the virus, how it's changing, how it's spreading in China. but also a lot of concern about the government's response. We need clear information as to how to respond. And I think we're getting there slowly. Yeah. So we're starting to see some clearer response from the government, from the Minister of Health, saying, around people who've been in China coming home and being quarantined. Yeah. We're seeing clearer advice around travel, but I do think it's been far too slow and not clear enough advice early enough. So one of the big issues at the moment is around international students. So school starting this week and next. University institutions will be opening over coming weeks. We've got huge amounts of international students coming from China, and
something just fell down in the studio. So,
but I think
what are you doing out there?
It was a breeze that blew in.
Oh, a small breeze. Yeah. It must be windy in Auckland at the moment.
Yeah.
Hey, Wellington, we're coming for you.
That's
we're
right.
Having windy Auckland.
And so, what we're saying is we need clear information.
Yeah.
And we need it now.
What if you were the minister responsible for this? If it happened under your watch, what would you have done differently?
Well, I think one of the things that needs to be happening is daily updates to the public, and you need to be standing there alongside the chief medical advisors and actually being very clear with the public as to what's happening, what you're doing, getting all of government response together early. Making sure that schools, education institutions have that clear information. Yeah. Schools only got advice on Monday this week.
What are we, Thursday?
We're now Thursday, so schools were only given advice on Monday evening this week around how they can respond. And so that's, Maclean's College in my electorate, was talking about this the week beforehand.
Right.
And the advice only came through on Monday. So, there needs to be a much faster response. And I know it's something which is happening as we speak, but at the same time, I'm nervous, you're nervous, a lot of people are feeling nervous, and even if this doesn't eventuate into something which we fear, there's no harm in being over-prepared.
Yeah, well, exactly, right? Because you can't take it back.
Exactly.
Issue number 4, ihumātao.
So I think you know more than me on this one.
Do you think so?
Well, I don't.
Well, Panya went to university with us.
Yes, but I don't. But that's about. But
is that the extent of your knowledge? Please tell me no.
I know a bit about the issue, but I haven't heard much about this deal other than there's been a few comments in the media.
Oh yeah, it was Duncan Garner, of course.
Duncan Garner.
And it was allegedly. I'm not saying that this is like a robust source of information.
Have you heard anything else?
No, I'm not close to the issue. I can't say I spend a lot of time. I mean, if I spent time on the front line of this protest, I wouldn't have a business. So, that's the first issue from my perspective. But this $45 million, which is being bandied around, I don't know anything more than that. But what I did find interesting, and I touched on the show last week, was that New Zealand First's Twitter said that any deal is so far away and not even in their realm of possibility that it's all hype and speculation. Yeah. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing because I don't have the tweet in front of me. But I thought, well, I put out the call to anyone from New Zealand First to tell me what was happening, because I said I feel like we've got two different stories coming from, the cabinet, because that's the Deputy Prime Minister.
It is, and this is, I think, a really interesting issue because you've got here private property rights.
Yep.
Fletchers own the land.
Yep.
You've got a group of iwi who are actually partnering with Fletchers who are going to benefit with housing for their people.
Yep.
Then you've got a whole lot of other people coming and saying, actually, this land's really important to us, and putting a huge amount of pressure on the government. Prime Minister saying we're going to stop this, and then doing that.
Yep.
And now you've got sort of this talk of a deal.
Yeah.
Probably some public money being involved.
Yeah.
That's taxpayers' money. That's people out there working really hard.
Yeah.
Are going to have to potentially buy this land back.
Yeah.
And then that puts at risk every other treaty settlement, because we have to remember this land went through a treaty settlement process, and those treaty settlement processes are full and final. That means that's it. That land is then the government's not dealing with it anymore, and that puts at risk every other full and final treaty settlement up and down this country, and that opens a whole lot more litigation, which we don't need to be doing as a country.
Well, what's fascinating too is I think Māori Party are going to campaign on this. They're going to use this as a campaign issue that they think that treaty settlement should be relooked into. I mean,
this is the key: full and final treaty settlements.
Right.
The whole point about them is that they are finished with, because as a country we need to recognise that things weren't perfect, but we also need to look forward to the future and work together in partnership for the future. And part of that is actually saying, let's go through this process in good faith. That this is recognising the wrongs. That we are offering something in exchange for to basically apologise and provide some sort of and I'm not saying it's full compensation, but some sort of compensation and recognition of what happened. And then it's saying it's full and final, it's over. We're going to work together for the future. And so that's the principle behind this. If you start unlocking that, every piece of private land up and down this country, every treaty settlement, that's the risk.
Absolutely.
And that's huge. But interesting, back to your point around the differences between the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister. This is going to be fascinating to watch over the next few weeks. This is why I say I don't know much about it more than you do, because I'd love to be a fly in the cabinet room just to hear what's being said, because I think there's an enormous rift between those two parties on this issue.
Yeah, look, I mean, like, we know, the Minister for Infrastructure, going on that topic that we were just on, Shane Jones, has been very vocal about this.
That's right.
And a lot of people agree with him.
That's right.
A lot of people agree with him. So, I mean, I just sort of sit and wait. I don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly.
But hey, if you, again...
If anyone knows, please.
Yeah, please, just let us know.
Yeah.
Come, Kōrero mai, talk to us. We would love to know what was going on. Right, final issue, and then we're going to move on. Lobbying in New Zealand. What views do you have on people like me who are lobbyists?
Lobbyists are great.
You can't say that just because you're sitting here in the studio with me.
No, I think lobbyists, have a place, and as a politician, I lobby people.
Yeah.
And I think it's about persuading, but it's also about providing information, advice. But I think there is a bad name which sometimes lobbyists get.
Yeah.
But I think it's part of the political process. There are people who have interests who want to bring their views to the ears of those who have the ability to influence decisions.
Yes.
Or make decisions. And I think that's always going to be part of any political system.
Yeah.
And I just think it's a matter of making sure that as a politician, you take into account all the views.
I think it's really fascinating because bear in mind, I've only been one for just over 2 years now. So by all means, I don't call myself the expert. Absolutely not. But it's sort of like there's this idea that someone like myself can have this overwhelming impact on some sort of like thing that's before the House, which is before all members of Parliament. And I sit there and I think we do realise that our members of Parliament are not stupid for the most part. They're not stupid. Like, you can't, if you sit there and present something, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to agree with you. And I think almost like too much persuasion gets placed at the feet of lobbyists. It's not this dark art. It's in essence just helping navigate a system. That's
right. And you work for clients, and there's a lot of people out there who don't actually understand the political system. And so, I guess part of your job is to help them understand it and work through that. And so I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's actually, you play an important role in the political system. And I think the fear is that lobbyists play over, I guess, that they have more influence than
your
average New Zealander.
Right.
But I think every New Zealander has the ability to, and I think we're really fortunate in New Zealand, and potentially overseas the balance is wrong.
Yeah.
In other countries, potentially, for example, United States, where it's actually a much bigger industry, and actually access to politicians is far harder.
Yeah.
But in New Zealand, we have such easy access to politicians. People can email me. And I will respond.
Yeah, you don't need a lobbyist for that.
You can,
please.
Send messages to my Facebook page or whatever else. This is the reality of politics in New Zealand. It's very accessible, and I think that means that actually, we're listening to a wide variety of voices, But at the same time, it's important to listen to those who have industry knowledge, who are involved in new ideas or in business which government decisions impact.
Yeah.
And often people like yourself bring those issues to us and help build relationships, which are really important.
Should we have more transparency around lobbying in New Zealand?
Well, I guess it depends on what that looks like. I mean, I think there's always probably room for improvement. But I guess I'm not close enough to the industry to be able to sort of comment on that.
I personally don't think it'd be a bad thing. Like they say, there's that famous saying which lots of journalists use. It's like sunlight's the best disinfectant.
Yeah, and I just think if people declare their interests and things like that, as a politician, I have to declare all my interests and everything else. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But it's always an interesting question of how much regulation does government how much should government put its nose into every industry. So I just think you've really got to look at the problem. What's the solution, and is it actually going to improve things? And that's kind of a question. Jumping at regulation is an easy thing for a politician to say. Let's just regulate. But actually, often it doesn't actually always have the impact you want. There's always unintended consequences. So I'm not someone who just sort of jumps at regulation every time there's a problem.
I just think you've raised a really interesting thing, and I'm going to end this conversation quite quickly. But you have to declare your interests. Is it the pecuniary interest?
That's right. Pecuniary interest.
It kind of just, to me, if that's something that I think, because ultimately for me, I do a lot of pro bono work as well, because I don't think that lobbying is something that just people who can afford it should have access to. I think everyone to know how our democracy works and how to talk to likes of MPs or officials and navigate the system. But if that's something that will make the public feel more at ease, it's not necessary. I mean, I'm not sure. Would you have to regulate for it?
Well, I think that's potentially something, the industry can self-regulate potentially to start with at least, actually sitting down and actually thinking about, if this is something that's important, and you think about, improving confidence in New Zealand's democracy, that's something that can be voluntarily done without the heavy hand of government coming along and saying you must and you must not.
I feel like you've just given me a job today.
Yeah, there we are.
I shouldn't have gone on that tangent. All right, we're gonna.
But I think for politicians, it should be. I mean, it's mandatory, and it absolutely needs to be mandatory. Our interest is it's important that we're transparent, and people know, everything.
Yeah, people know everything.
Well, as much as possible. I mean, as much as in terms of our public role.
Yeah.
I have to declare, my financial interests.
Yeah.
I need to declare gifts over a certain value, all of those things, and I think that's actually a really important part of the democracy that happens, and and it's just part of the job because people, I shouldn't be beholden to other interests.
No.
And I represent the people of Pakuranga.
Yeah.
They put me there.
Yeah.
And they've got it. They need to know exactly that sort of information.
So tell me, as an opposition MP, a lot of people will say that the ability to make legislation and make real change will sit with the government, but we do have this process within Parliament called members' bills, where people can put members of Parliament from any party can put a piece of legislation, put a bill into the ballot and hopefully get it drawn. Do you have anything in the ballot at the moment?
I do. So I just put a new bill in there last week. Last week, that's right.
Okay.
So
well, wait, hit me with its title, because this is the thing, and for anyone listening out there, they've always got really, really fantastically interesting titles, and they really strike at the heart of the issue.
Yeah, so mine, I can even show you a picture. Well, I mean, put it on camera. So it's called the Land Transport (brackets) Vehicles Responding to Electrical Emergencies (close bracket) Amendment Bill.
Wow. It's a cracker.
Does that explain enough about what it does?
That's it. Let's move on. No. Okay. Tell me what the Land Transport bracket something close bracket bill, the amendment bill does.
So essentially, this bill, it sounds really boring, but
yes, you're not wrong. It does.
It's designed to help solve a real issue. So at the moment, if a car was to hit a power line in Auckland, which happens on average once every day in Auckland,
really,
that kind of incident
what?
on average once a day.
Once a day,
a car versus power line in Auckland. If that happened, and the power lines are sitting over top of the car, and there's someone stuck in it, the fire and the ambulance can get there using their sirens and lights, move through the traffic, and can turn up as quickly as they can.
Right.
But they can't get the person out until the power's turned off.
Okay.
And the person responding from the lines company, for in Auckland it's Vector, they have no ability to do it. They have to drive through the traffic like anyone else. So if they're stuck on the Southern Motorway at 4:30 in the afternoon, they're stuck on the motorway and they have to, they can't move through the traffic any faster than anyone else and can respond to that any quicker.
Really?
That's right. So this bill basically gives them the ability to have lights and for cars to be required to pull over, so they can move through the traffic and respond faster. So that's the problem it's designed. There's plenty of examples of this being a problem in Auckland, particularly where there's growing congestion issue when you have a government not investing in critical roading. Congestion's getting worse. There we are. Just getting so excited about the subject, and
good. So you should.
And so that's going to hopefully make a real difference.
That sounds very common sense.
It is a common sense issue, and it's. I've had some great support from the likes of Vector's come out and support.
Okay.
I've had other stakeholders in the industry get in touch, keen to meet and discuss it. But as with anything in the members' ballot, it's a bit like Lotto. You have one entry, well, you can probably have more, if you're in Lotto. But one entry in the members' bill, and you have to hope yours gets pulled.
So, and then because one of the purposes of the Political Power Hour is to actually bring knowledge to the people, to the audience, so that people learn a little bit more. To the people. Exactly. Well, they're what we're doing now. No, don't do this just to listen to the sound of my own voice. I can do that perfectly well on my own. Is to teach them something. So for those out there who don't know what the members' ballot is, do you want to just quickly explain?
So there's actually a biscuit tin down in Parliament. Which
see, in that he's not having
a literal biscuit tin. It's quite an old biscuit tin, but what happens is we all put our bills together,
which are proposed laws.
Laws like mine. We want to make a difference on a particular issue, and all MPs except ministers can do this, and so we put them down. And then what they do is they assign your bill a number, and it's basically a piece of plastic with a number on it. Chuck it in a biscuit tin, rattle it, and they pull one out. They pull a number out, and that person's bill then goes on what's called the order paper of Parliament. And so every second week we have a members' day, and we debate bills down that order one by one. And so yours goes at the bottom, and it just works its way through.
Unless it can get bumped up, right? Can it?
Only by leave of the House. Yeah. So very rarely happens. Basically, everything just goes in order.
Right.
Everyone gets an equal chance to the ballot. Everyone gets an equal chance. Once your bill's in, it just follows the procedures.
So, what's the likelihood of land transport bracket staff close bracket amendment? Because I can't remember what it is.
That's right. Well, through
before.
Well, the likelihood of the land transport bracket vehicles responding to electrical emergency close bracket amendment bill.
Thank you. That's it.
The likely, obviously it's low. I've had one pulled before, which was around the synthetic drugs, which I talked about before. But you've got to be in to win.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've written to the Minister of Transport, under whose umbrella this is, and said, look, this is a common sense issue.
Right.
I hope you can look at it, and potentially we can work together on this because, I'd love to have the bill pulled and actually turn into law. Yeah. But actually, the minister can also look at it and potentially make some changes here. So we'll see how that goes. I'll be continuing to lobby on this issue over the year. Yeah. And so I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it because I think we've got to raise the profile of the issue. People often don't think about the practicalities of these things. But that another example I could give is there's a lot of people in the community who are dependent on electricity for health reasons. So if you're on a dialysis machine, power turns off. It's really important that power gets turned back on for these people. Yeah. And so power cuts happen for all sorts of reasons. There's a big power cut in Auckland CBD
Just recently, right?
last week.
Yeah.
I think it was Thursday or Friday. And, there's a lot of people living in the city dependent on power. Some of that is for medical reasons. And so getting the power back on is really, really important. This bill will allow response vehicles to get there faster and get on with doing that job, because when they're sitting in traffic, the power ain't getting back on.
Yeah, exactly. Just makes sense. Just makes sense to me. Just makes sense.
So we'll see how this goes over the year.
All right, so I'm just looking at the time, and we've got about 10 more minutes.
Great.
There are a couple of things that I just wanted to talk to you about quickly before we wrap up the show, and one of them was the fact that you were born in 1991. So
That's right.
That makes you a millennial.
Yes.
How do you feel about that title?
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic.
Why? Why do you feel fantastic about that?
Oh, I just think it's a great year to have been born, you know?
No, not the year you were born. The fact that you get called a millennial, and then all of the other things that are associated with that.
Oh, look, I don't spend too much time thinking about whether I'm a millennial or not. but what it says about me, is that hopefully I'm a little bit more youth adjacent than the Prime Minister.
Do you reckon?
Well, in some respects, in terms of my age, but it's in politics. You get labelled with all sorts of things.
Yeah, well, I'd say that I note that you haven't asked me for a selfie yet, and we have been.
We have had a selfie though. You selfied. You took a selfie at the start.
Yeah, I know, but that wasn't really like a solid selfie.
Do you want to do one?
Yeah, I think we'll do it when the cameras are up, right? Because it might get all awkward, and we already had so much trouble with this mic getting it all set up. Interesting. I embrace the term millennial.
So I was. So there's a new generation being born. So my daughter.
Yeah.
So she was born 2019.
Yeah.
And she is the generation. Do you know the term?
No.
There's a term I heard about the other day. I'll find out and let you know. But there's a new term.
Born in 1999. Oh no.
2019.
I promise you, I'm not usually that slow, people. Okay. Generation. Let's have a look. No, it can't be that.
But anyway, I think I can't remember the term, but basically alpha. These people born on their laptops or born on their phones.
Generation Alpha.
So that's who the next generation are going to be. Because when I was growing up, the school had a computer room. Yeah. But devices are just.
I'm only a year older than you. Just remember that. Mine had a computer room too.
But now, children these days are just born with a.
iPad in their hand.
iPad in their hand. It's a completely.
Did Anna have one?
No, not quite. But it's a completely different world, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Completely different world.
Do you think that then the next generation after that's going to be generation beta?
Well, it has to be.
I think somebody needs to think about getting new words for this. All right, and one of the other things that I wanted to ask you about is it's one of the practical things about Parliament, which people don't really seem to think about, and it's definitely not helped by the fact no one watches Parliament TV, right?
Don't they?
No, they don't. I promise you there's like 600 people that watch it, and yes, I am one of them. But you have an assigned seat, right?
That's right, yep.
So am I correct in thinking that your seatmates are Andrew Falloon and Maureen Pugh?
That's right.
Who's the most annoying? I can tell you which one I think it will be.
Oh, look, they're both good fun. Great banter between the both of them.
All right.
So we really enjoy each other's company.
Yeah.
So Maureen Pugh's our list MP from West Coast, Tasman electorate, on in the South Island. Yeah. And Andrew Falloon's MP for Rangitata, again in the South Island. Both great MPs, do a great job. Yeah. Maureen Pugh's an absolutely amazing advocate for the West Coast. Yeah. And Andrew does a great job in his electorate. I don't know how he manages to he's got a big electorate, big rural electorate, gets to so much stuff. Yeah. Mine's like a postage stamp compared to his. But he's always out and about doing so much. Yeah. So, no, we've got a great team in Parliament, and they're both great people.
So you don't want to what about the person who sits behind you? Who's that?
Oh, this is the thing, actually.
Come on, give me a little bit.
Well, Hamish Walker's behind me.
Oh,
so
surely.
It's all alphabetical. So the class of 2017, we're all basically put in our positions by last name alphabetical.
Surely you can give me a little bit of gossip about someone sitting around you somewhere.
Oh, look, no, they're all good people.
Quintessential politician.
They do,
Come
and
on.
they do a great job. They do a great job. Matt King's an interesting character. He's our MP for Northland.
Northland, yeah.
He sits a couple across
Yeah.
from me.
Yeah.
And he's always got a interesting something to throw in there all the time.
Does he? Does he get in trouble?
He gets in trouble a bit.
Oh,
Yeah, he's
yeah.
probably a bit of a troublemaker.
Yeah.
But in a good way.
Yeah.
In a good way. And
Yeah.
that's kind of a really good mix to our team. So there's a whole lot of people. I think there's about 11, 12 MPs in our class now.
Yeah.
So it's quite a big class. Might even be more than that.
Do you know who
and they're
else
all different.
strikes me as being a troublemaker?
Who?
Alfred Nara.
Alfred Nardo. In
I
what
reckon
way?
he's just really a little bit cheeky. I imagine that he's sort of like, because he's quite a suave guy,
He is.
right?
He is.
But I always just imagine him having a little bit of bants there.
Yeah, he's a
in
good
the
man.
house,
He's a
yeah?
good man. I got kicked out once.
Of the house?
Yeah.
What did you do?
Well, it wasn't a bad thing, I thought, but it was actually Maureen Pugh and I together.
Maureen has been kicked out.
Yeah, we got kicked out on the same day together.
I'm absolutely outraged.
Along with Ian McKelvey, who's our MP in the Rangitikei electorate. And
What were you guys doing to get
well,
kicked out?
essentially, one of the government ministers wasn't answering a question very well, and of
Right.
course, there's a lot of banter in the house. A lot of we're all yelling and saying stuff.
Right.
And the speaker stands up and says, "I can't understand what the minister's saying."
Yeah.
And so I yelled out, "I can't either." And so I had to withdraw and apologise. The three of us, it was
Right.
myself, Maureen, we'd all sort of said something while he was on his feet. You can't do that.
Yeah.
And so we all
And
had to
Ian.
get up and withdraw and apologise, which
Yeah.
is basically saying sorry
Yeah.
in Parliament.
Yeah.
And Maureen and I both got up and said it at exactly the same time. So we sort of meant to say it individually. And it came across quite cheeky that we're both sort of saying, it's like, back at school saying, "Good morning, Mr."
Yeah.
It sounded a bit cheeky.
Did-
And so we were kicked out.
What did you do after? Just have a cup of tea?
Went back to my office and it's amazingly eerie Parliament is when question time's on.
That's because I'm not there. It would be extremely noisy if
No,
I was
it
there.
absolutely would be, but it's actually quite funny when you go and you walk down the corridors and it's
Yeah.
a much quieter place. So
Yeah.
it's fascinating.
Yeah.
So I went back to my office and did a few emails and
Okay.
a few
just
bits
got
and
back to
pieces, and then I was allowed back in a couple hours later.
it. Okay. Love it. All right. So, what we're going to do now, we're going to wrap up shortly. Now, there is something I'd like you to do for me.
Okay.
Okay. So, the plan is to have a guest every week, right? So, I've got a guest next week.
Right.
And for those of you that are listening and can't see, I've got
A pink box.
a lovely pink box.
Lovely
here.
pink box.
Lovely pink box. Okay.
It's a beautiful pink box.
So there's actually there's two things I want you to do.
Okay.
Alright? So the first thing in regards to a guest is that we've got a guest who's also a current MP.
Great.
It's not any of them that you've ragged on today, don't you worry. But, no. And so what I want you to do is to write a note for them.
Okay.
So whatever you want. And I'll
Yep.
tell you who it is.
Okay.
But I'm just building a little bit of anticipation
Yep.
here. Is that you're going to write something for them and then preferably with like no swear words so that and then they're going to read it out on air
Okay.
next
Great.
week.
Fantastic.
Okay. So our guest next week is David Seymour,
Fantastic.
the leader of the ACT Party. So what I would like you to do, Simeon Brown, is write a short message for him, and then I'm going to present it to him next week, and then it's going to be a message from you to him.
Okay.
So I can say whatever you want, and don't tell us because I'm going to get
Okay.
into, and I'm not going to open it. You're
Okay.
going to close the envelope, and then we're going to open up on next week's show. Now, while you're doing that, I'll let you have some thinking time. It's sort of come to my attention in terms of spirit of Kiwis that we all seem to have very, very strong opinions about fruit bursts,
Yeah, we do.
about what is the best flavour. Now, if I was more onto it, I was going to put up a poll on the Twitter, but I think I will do it.
You should.
I will put it up, and we'll leave it up for the duration of the series, right? And I want to see which flavour reigns supreme. But what I would like you to do as well, as you are doing your message, is to think about, I don't think I'm going to be able to open this, is to think about which flavour it is that you're going to commit to.
Okay.
And bear in mind, there's no blue one.
So whichever one I
Yeah, that's the one that you're staking your name as Simeon Brown, MP for Pakuranga,
Okay.
as that being the flavour that you stand behind.
Right.
Keep writing, and
Okay.
because I just I'm going to have to take some time, clearly, to open this packet. I should have, like, pre-opened it. Because I think it's a trivial issue, but it's also one that seems to draw battle lines. And as I hope I will get somebody from every party on here, we'll be able to sort of tell what's going on. Where is that?
Is it?
It's the worst flavour. I can't get out. Banana. There we go. All right. So, look at them. Which one are you going to go for?
Which one am I going to go for?
Which one? And as I said, I mean, they've all got blue on them, so.
Yeah, they do. They do. I'll go for the lemon and lime.
Oh, controversial. Lemon and lime.
Yeah, I love it.
Why?
It's a great flavour. I always like something a bit tangy.
Okay.
I really hate the banana flavour.
Yeah, me too.
As everyone does.
Yeah.
If you've got a bowl of them, they're always like a million yellow ones left at the end.
There's going to be people who be like, banana is the best
Oh,
flavour
there's very
ever.
few of them, so I won't be annoying too many people.
It could be the whole of Pakuranga.
What? Yeah, possibly, but probably not. Wild berry. It's
It's a solid.
It's a good one. I like it.
Yeah.
Strawberry's good, but I'd rather eat a strawberry than have a
Really?
strawberry lolly.
Really?
Yeah, most definitely.
But you wouldn't rather eat a lemon and a lime?
No. And that's the thing about lemon and lime is that I wouldn't like to eat one,
Yeah.
but I'd love a lolly which has got that tang, but
Yeah.
not, obviously as tangy as a lemon or lime.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I really, love it.
Folks, you heard it here first.
And look, it's green and blue-green. It's about National Party values, but also caring for our environment.
Oh, really?
That's part of what the image is about.
I feel like you're grasping at straws there. I think that's a good point to leave it. Thank you so much for joining us on the
thank
Political
you.
Power Hour. You have written a note to David?
I did, just a very short one. He won't. It's just a short message.
You realise I'm going to get him to open it
Yep,
next week?
perfect.
And then, so better not cause me any trouble next week.
No.
Because we're going to start the top of the show. See, your first guest, so you get to start it off. So, yeah. Thank you for being here with us today. It's been great to get to know you more and, bring some of your whakaaro to our viewers. Is there anything else, like if everyone listening wanted to get in touch with you, or if they wanted to send you any questions, any pātai, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Whatever way people communicate, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or just, the old-fashioned email.
TikTok?
No,
Are you sure you're not on TikTok?
definitely not.
Is Simon going to get on TikTok? Paula's going to get on TikTok? Who's going to
I don't know.
Paula, get on TikTok.
But no, look, you can contact me, simeon.brown@parliament.govt.nz.
Awesome.
Otherwise, it's Simeon Brown MP is basically the handle
Yeah, for anything.
for everything. So feel free to like my page, send me a message. Happy to answer any questions.
Awesome. Well, that's it.
And thank you for having
Oh,
me.
you're so welcome.
You're a great host.
Anytime. What can I say? Take after my father? No, I really don't. I really don't, because let's not open that can of worms. He was sued by a National Party leader, but we can talk about that later. Everyone, that's our episode for today, the Political Power Hour. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure that you join us next week, 3:30, same time, same place, where we'll have David Seymour, the leader of the ACT Party and the MP for Epsom, who will be opening Simeon's note live on air. We'll see what that says. And we'll also be doing the Fruit Burst Challenge with him, seeing which flavour reigns supreme throughout our New Zealand MPs. So make sure you tune in next week and have a great Thursday afternoon.
Thank you very much.